My name is Zahilay. I'm a King County Council member representing District 2, and I've been in this position for 6 months. What a year it's been. 2020 has been the wildest year of my life. You know, before I even started in this position, King County and the U.S. generally were facing so many different crises already. You know, we had a homelessness crisis, we had a wealth inequality crisis, a climate crisis. And then we get to 2020, and this year has just been like, y'all ain't seen nothing yet. So it has definitely been a crazy year. And I remember talking to a reporter just a few days ago, and he asked me, why do you think this year feels so different? Why do you think people are responding in such a different way to the various crises and tragedies that we've seen? You know, he said, for example, George Floyd is by far not the first black man to be murdered by police, unarmed black man. And he said, why are people responding differently this time? And I think that's a really good question. What I think is happening right now is that in 2020, we have seen so many different just generations of unjust and unsustainable policies playing out in a way that leads to marginalized communities dying. Some people might not see the connection between George Floyd and COVID-19, the two big galvanizing occurrences of 2020, but I think those are very similar dynamics in that when we've been winding up these generations of racist and unsustainable bad policies for so long, and in 2020 they're playing out in a way that either leads to police violence and murder on a unarmed black man on the floor, or they play out in black and brown and indigenous people dying disproportionately at the hands of COVID-19 because of all of the gaps and flaws in our system. So these are very similar dynamics, and what we're seeing right now is millions of people waking up to this fact. When you see an unarmed black man being choked to death for 8.5 minutes with his hands tied behind his back calling for his mother, there's something that really shakes you to your core to say, how can we let our systems play out like this? When you're seeing so many uninsured, underinsured people, low-income people, black and brown and indigenous people dying disproportionately to a virus that could be contained, could be the consequences of which could be managed if we had universal health care, if we had Medicare for all, if we had an income floor so that people who are laid off don't have to choose between going to work and contracting the virus or not having enough rent and food to pay. If we had the kinds of social safety nets that we need to endure a crisis like this, we wouldn't have the kinds of mass transmission that we're seeing right now. These are systems flaws. And what people who are rising up around the country are saying is that we don't want incremental change. We don't want the same thing to keep happening over and over and again. If there was ever a time for change, that time is right now. That's what people are saying. And so I think it's so important that we have organizations like Washington Bus helping to support young people who are organizing, young people who are taking to the streets, helping connect them to the right places so that they can make their voices heard. This is the most important thing that we can be doing right now. In my lifetime, I have never seen a moment like this before. The times are so ripe for change, and I'm excited to build with each and every one of you. Big shout out to someone who helped me get elected, Noura Abdi, who's a bus fellow this past year. I just think it's so important for us to get engaged. You know, it's so important for us to participate civically, even from home, because we know that going out right now can be a life and death sentence, especially for communities that are most vulnerable and susceptible. So log into social media, do what y'all do best for your generation, connect virtually, hold Zoom panels and invite elected officials to answer tough questions, spread resources and information to communities that maybe are not the most adjacent to power. Vote by mail. We have a great state from a voter participation lens, because you can vote by mail. You do have 2 weeks to vote, and local elections matter so much. So get out there, spread the information, galvanize your community, share resources with your community, force your elected officials to answer tough questions and come up with solutions to the biggest challenges, big, bold, structural solutions, and not just tiny incremental gives or symbolic gestures. We're done with symbolic gestures. Shout out to the 2020 Bus Fellows. Shout out to Washington Bus, everybody that's involved. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this special day.